The Blind King's Charge by Sevastian Winters. Inspired by true events. The rain had stopped by dawn, leaving the battlefield damp and restless. Clouds hung low over Crécy, smothering the sun as if the heavens themselves were mourning what was to come. I adjusted the straps of my king's armor with quick, practiced hands, my own nerves jangling like an unsteady drumbeat. The sounds of preparation rose all around us, the clatter of harnesses, the stamping of restless hooves, the murmurs of men trying to keep fear from their voices. King John of Bohemia sat astride his steed, as still as a statue, blind eyes unseeing but unyielding. His gauntleted hand rested on the pommel of his sword, the fingers relaxed, almost serene, as if this battle was like so many where I had fought alongside him in our quickly dissipating youth. "Give me the report," he commanded. I swallowed the lump building in my throat, for I knew before he responded what his choice would be. I served him as my king, but I knew him as a man. I'd seen his bravery, his dignity, his honor. I had experienced his mercy and seen him both weep and rage, at once pleading to and ordering the God who had taken away his sight. I was his eyes that day, and I knew what he would do, or that I could have lied to him. But he was my king. I had my duty. I had been given orders. "My lord," I began, swallowing again the stubborn lump in my throat, "the English are arrayed on the ridge. Archers in the front ranks, a wall of them. Their longbows will darken the sky." "Do you hear them, Henri?" he asked. His voice was calm, steady, as though he were a man sitting in his study, not on the brink of slaughter. I paused, straining my ears. Then I heard it, the faint snap of bowstrings, the hiss of arrows slicing through the air. The English archers were already loosing volleys to harry the French vanguard. "I hear them," I said, my voice low. "Good," the king replied. "When the time comes, you will guide me to them." The words hit like a blow to the chest. "My lord," I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice to a whisper, "you do not have to ride today. Your name alone is enough to rally the men. Let me—" "Henri," he interrupted, turning his face toward me. His eyes, milky and unseeing, seemed to pierce through my hesitation. "What is the worth of a name if it is not defended by deeds? What is the worth of a knight who does not fight?" His tone left no room for argument, but I tried anyway. "It is not cowardice to live to fight another day, my lord." "Do you think I fear death?" He leaned forward in the saddle, his voice sharpening. "I have seen it on 1,000 battlefields. Death is no stranger to me. But to die as a knight, that is a death worthy of a king." He straightened again, his bearing as regal as ever. "When it is time, Henri, tie our horses together. If I cannot see my enemies, I will trust you to lead me to them." I hesitated, my hands frozen on the reins. Around us, the remnants of his Bohemian retinue watched in silence, their faces pale, their eyes filled with unspoken dread. None of them dared to question the king, but their unease mirrored my own. "Henri," he said again, softer this time, "do not make me ask a third time." My throat tightened. I nodded. "Yes, my lord." The hours passed in a blur of preparation. The French knights charged the English line again and again, their banners streaming like rivers of blood, only to be shattered by the relentless storm of arrows. From our position, I could see the carnage, horses collapsing in tangled heaps, men writhing in the mud, their armor pierced like paper. I continued to give him the required reports. King John waited, motionless, his silence heavy with unspoken resolve. When the time came, he summoned his knights. "Now, tie our reins together," he commanded. I moved mechanically, my hands trembling as I lashed his horse to mine. The others followed suit, binding themselves into a living chain of steel and loyalty. My heart pounded in my chest, the weight of what we were about to do pressing down like a leaden shroud. As I tightened the last knot, I looked up at the king. "My lord," I said quietly, my voice barely audible above the distant roar of the battle, "if we ride this charge, we may not return." He sat resolute, unyielding, his countenance every bit of the majesty bestowed on him. "That is why we ride," he said, his tone soft but unyielding. "Better to die as a knight than live as a shadow of one." It felt like the sound of God's own thunder when at last the king raised his sword and cried out, "To the enemy, strike for Bohemia." At once, and with a mighty roar, as one, we began our charge. The world erupted into chaos. The ground shook beneath us as our horses surged forward, their hooves pounding the earth like thunder. The air was thick with the hiss of arrows, the screams of men, and the clash of steel. "Guide me, Henri," the king shouted above the din. "I am with you, my lord," I called back, my voice breaking with emotion. Our formation was tight, our horses bound together in unyielding unity. The English line loomed ahead, their archers still loosing volley after volley. I felt the pull of the reins that tied me to the king, his blind trust a weight heavier than any armor. As the arrows began to fall all around us, men cried out in fear, but he held his sword aloft, a blind king leading his knights into the storm, willing them with his strength. The first impact of enemy soldiers was like a tidal wave. We crashed into the English line, swords flashing, shields splintering, horses screaming. I swung my blade in wide arcs, cutting down any man who came within reach. Around me, the knights of Bohemia fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their cries mingling with the chaos. "Strike true, Henri!" the king bellowed. "Strike for Bohemia!" "My lord!" I shouted, but my voice was lost in the cacophony. The reins that had bound us together had snapped, and he was gone, swallowed by the melee. When the battle ended, the field was a sea of bodies. The English stood victorious, their banners unbroken, while the French and their allies lay shattered in the mud. I searched for him amid the carnage, my heart sinking with every step. The stench of blood and death nearly overwhelmed me, but I pressed on. At last I found him, still in the saddle, his body pierced by arrows, his hands frozen on the reins. Around him lay his loyal knights, their horses collapsed in death, their swords still clutched in lifeless hands. I fell to my knees beside him, my vision blurred with tears. "My lord!" He did not answer. But in his death he had found what he sought, a knight's end, a hero's glory. The cawing of crows and the low groans of the wounded cut through the heavy silence, a macabre hymn to the fallen. In the days that followed, the chroniclers would write of his bravery, of how a blind king led his knights into battle, refusing to yield even in the face of certain death. They would speak of honor and valor, of the courage that inspired men to fight on, even when all hope was lost. But they would not write of the pain, the fear, the heartbreak of those who followed him. They would not write of the men who died by his side, or the ones who lived to carry the weight of his legacy. Now, in the old age the Lord has seen fit to curse me with, I often dream of that day. I can still remember the sound of his voice, steady even as we rode into death, The sight of him, still astride his steed even in the end. Some call it bravery, others call it folly. I call it duty, mine to him, and his to the ideals he lived and died for. It is a memory I carry like a wound, as heavy as my sword, and I will bear it for as long as I live. O my king, that I could have died with you, a knight in glory, rather than this life in the shadows, the man who could not protect his king.